Hello, hello. Welcome back to another Facebook Live. Tracy here from Directional Tourism. Now, I have to ask you a question. Does your business have a website? Now, if your business has a website, you need to be here today because today we are talking about 3 little hot tips that you can do working on your website to make sure that it just gets noticed. Now, a website is a tool that it's just like a business card. It's really important to have, but the difference between a business card is you don't have to do anything with it once you've got it. With a website, you need to constantly be working and flexing that muscle. If you are not working on your website, it is not doing the job for you. So today, I'm excited to bring to the table Tom from Trigger. Tom, welcome.
G'day, Tracy. How are you?
I'm very well, Tom. Very well, Tom. Now, firstly, Tom, I have to ask you, how are you going? You're in Auckland.
Lockdown is interesting. 5 weeks or 6 weeks, it's gone on and on, but it's just about playing the game and doing the right thing, really, and sticking to it until we've sorted whatever way it goes.
Yeah, I know, it's tough. Look, I'm really glad, though, that you still have access to the internet.
I do, and work is still coming in, and we have many clients, and just because we can't go meet them face to face doesn't mean it's not happening, which is a good thing. And I think at this time, a lot of people are really concentrating on digital and what they can do.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like from the first lockdown to this second lockdown, digital has just catapulted. It's just gone through the roof.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. Lots of people are asking, and I actually feel that there's a lot more people that actually understand digital. And so therefore the questions that they are asking are a lot more in depth. So let's, so Tom, before we get started, do you just want to let people know, Trigger, what is Trigger?
So for many years, we worked in another agency that my business partner and I, we helped start an agency in Auckland many years ago, and we kind of were centered on the tourism market, and it grew into a great big business. We started dealing with lots of corporates. For many years, I was on the ground around New Zealand looking after owner operators, and I love that, consulting about everything from booking engines to websites to how they optimize. And then mid the first COVID shutdown, we decided we had enough, and I wanted to get back to core business. So we literally started Trigger, built our own website, reached out to our database, and we started, hit the ground running, and we haven't stopped since. And the whole focus of Trigger was around looking after small business owners, small to medium businesses, guys on the ground who are there 24/7, doing the bookings, looking after the guests, cleaning the rooms, fixing the boats, whatever they're doing. Because that's what floats our boats, is how do you give them realistic, honest advice and be effective and deliver something that when they implement themselves, it's effective. So that's really what our business focus is about.
Yeah. And I have to share with people that how you and I connected. It was actually quite odd because I was actually working with a mutual friend, essentially a client that we had some involvement with, and they'd mentioned your name. And I thought, I don't have a clue who this Tom guy is. I passed. And before I knew it, I was working with other tourism operators that kept talking about this Tom. And I'm like, okay, all right, enough. I now need to hunt this Tom down. And I reached out to you, and well, it's the rest is history, Tom. I absolutely love working with you now, and we have lots of very fantastic tourism conversations, especially around
very animated.
You're very animated, definitely, and we're excited to say that we're able to do work together. So that's what I love, connecting with lots of like-minded people. But your passion is very similar to my passion, that we want to make sure that those small tourism businesses or small businesses are succeeding, especially in their digital footprint. We want them to do well. So saying that, I really want to get stuck into this topic. So websites, I put you up there on that pedestal, Tom. We are going to talk about websites today, and you've got 3 little cheeky tips to help people out.
I have.
So
these are things that we talk about all the time, and I'm sure whoever watches this has heard it a lot of times, but the only really reason I go over them a lot is because I consulted and did workshops and traveled the length and breadth of New Zealand, Australia, South Pacific for many years. And even today, they still come up as the number one things for me, that where it's really easy to measure what's going on with your website, manage what's going on with your website, and do things yourself that actually help the strength and length of the lifespan of your website. So these are things I like to talk about.
All right. Well, kick us off. What is the first point you're going to bring up?
Well, the first point that I really go on about, and when I do my workshops, and as you know, Tracy, when I come and did one in Marlborough, was the strength of Google, the value and strength of Google Analytics. It's basically a free tool from Google. It's added to your website. It should have been added to your website. It's a piece of code. It's your own account. It's set up through your Gmail account, whatever that is. And you literally log into Google Analytics, and it's like a statistical and analytical map of everything going on with your website. Who's visiting it, what part of the world, what page, what demographic, what mobile device they're on, how long they're on the website, which pages they're on, when they left, what they did while they're on your website. It shows funnels and drop-off rates. It's just an incredible tool for measuring your website. If you're doing digital marketing, which probably a few of you are, if you're doing your own marketing, if you're doing Facebook posts, if you're doing Facebook marketing, even if you're doing Instagram marketing, if you're doing any kind of marketing, or you've even got any kind of advertising going out there with your website address on, you want to know and be able to see what's going on your website. Is it working? Are your visitors improving? Are they decreasing? Are they leaving your website? Have your demographics changed? Are you still getting tons of people from Australia looking at you, even though they can't book you? Are they all from Auckland? Are they from Wellington? Are they from Christchurch? Where are they looking at you from? And the reason why I think the value is so important is that if you're going to be looking at, if someone's, and you're probably getting emails galore from marketing companies saying your website needs this and you need that, and have you thought about this, and are you doing this? And we're all a bit bamboozled about what you actually do in the current market. Your analytics is a really good tool for seeing, hey, I know where my database is. I know which people are looking at my website. I know that 80% of the people looking at my website are from Christchurch. So I really, maybe Auckland is a market for me, but really I think number one, it should be Christchurch. It helps you go in informed about A, what your current audiences are, B, what your potential audiences are, and C, where there's potentially an audience that you haven't even tapped into.
Totally agree. And I think it is an underestimated tool. One thing that is confusing people, and maybe you can speak to this, is that Google Analytics now has its, is it GA4 or G4U?
Yeah.
The new version. And that's confusing a lot of people because the analytics are not the same.
No, and it doesn't even, they have, we always used to count bounce rate as an enormous measurement tool. And Google has considered bounce rates not a real important tool anymore, which astounded a whole bunch of people. But if you read what Google says, it kind of makes sense, because they're saying that bounce rates can be so varied by depending on what marketing you're doing, what platform you're marketing on. Social media is very dreamy, so the bounce rates skew. So basically, they've moved away from bounce rate being the number one measure of anything on a website. It is very different, but I think like anything, I'm sure that Google has measured very carefully with the hundreds of millions of websites and the hundreds of millions of pieces of information they're gathering on why they've done that. I'm sure it was an informed decision. And I think it's a matter of all of us actually getting in there and relearning what analytics is about and getting our head around why Google has measured it that way. What do you think, Tracy?
Yeah. Oh, no, look, I totally agree. I went into the new Google layout recently and it absolutely bamboozled me. And I'm so familiar with the old format, and it's just going to take a little bit of time to understand what you're going to measure. I understand that Google had changed this because it was more around the changing of our environment, so moving away from cookies, artificial intelligence. There's lots of things going on that Google was trying to keep up with. Yeah, so can I ask you, when we are looking at bounce rates, for those people that are still on the classic version of Google Analytics, what would you define as a good bounce rate?
Well, it's as varied as you read blogs online. There are so many specialists around the world who blog about what a bounce rate is and what's a valid bounce rate. But a year or so ago, when we were doing digital marketing on the old traditional style of Google Analytics, we considered around 50% was an average bounce rate. Again, that can be skewed by social. If you're doing a whole truckload of social media marketing, that can absolutely change your bounce rate and make it larger. Because again, social is about dreaming. It's about that dream phase in the tourism purchasing phase. So if you're doing an image or something on social, you might get a whole bunch of visitors to your website, but then they realize, actually, no, that's not what I wanted, because that's the nature of that market. So if it's traditional traffic, then around 50%. If it's a lot of social traffic, it can change that by 20, 30%. And again, it's about measuring. There's a whole bunch of other measures, so if you've got Google Tag Manager set up and you can see where your conversions are coming from and you're still getting plenty of conversions, then it's a matter of reviewing both and saying, well, we've got a hell of a lot of social traffic. The bounce rate's pretty out there, but we're still getting a lot of conversions. Well, then it's kind of paying off, because it's a matter of reviewing everything rather than just go, my bounce rate is this, so we better stop social.
Yeah. I think one thing that we need to let people know is that when they are doing Facebook campaigns, the Facebook analytics and Google analytics can actually vary.
Yes, they can.
And I don't know. Yeah. And I think one thing I did read in a blog recently is that Facebook doesn't always collect accurate data. And I hate to say it, but they fill gaps essentially. So they'll say, we assume that this is what's happened because we've watched, a percentage of the traffic do Y. So therefore, we assume that the rest of it. And so quite often you can find in Facebook that the analytics don't actually match Google. But Google is much more of a source of truth, isn't it?
Yeah, because Google is where they're actually measuring what they're doing when they come to your website, because your website is really where you want them to go, because social media is just a platform for directing people to a domain name or to your brand. So the website is really where you're going to measure what they're doing and what they've engaged with and how they've actually, have they converted? Are they even interested in what you're offering?
Yeah.
I think we're going to stop there, Trace. Otherwise, I'll talk for 20 minutes on flipping.
I know. And funny, I was just going to move you on, but this could actually be a topic on its own, can't it?
It could, totally.
Yeah. So we're going to part that. So if there is anyone that
everyone should just get in there and have a look and fossick around. Google will teach you how to use it. Even if you Google, how do I use the new analytics, you'll up come a whole bunch of little training tools.
Yeah, definitely. And Google has some fantastic training tools for learning anyway. Yeah, so it's always highly recommended. Actually, what I might do, Tom, is I'm going to pop the learning tools in the comments after we've finished a little later for anyone that's interested in having a look. Okay, so the next topic, Tom, hit us with it.
Blog. I always talk about blogging. People probably get sick of me talking about blogging, but when you talk about blogs to people, they all roll their eye. Well, a lot of my clients roll their eyes and go, well, I don't have time for that. And really, is anyone going to ever read it? And what's the point? It's not about that. Blogging is, if you use a proper blogging tool, you write about 400, 600 words. You optimize it properly and you put it in your website with a really good meta description, and it's all relevant. It's a fresh flow of content at your website, and Google will take each blog, index it as a new page of your website, and it's a really fabulous way of optimizing your own website, because you're adding a flow of content. It's more and more pages, so it's just adding more and more guts to your website, really, and it's such a value add.
Yeah.
And it also does add, when people find your website and they find a blog and you're writing about the subject that you're obviously knowledgeable or your business is about, it shows that you really care and are passionate about what you're involved in. And it just adds another dimension to a website.
Yeah. No, someone recently said to me, sometimes in many cases, we're actually not writing for the person to read it. We're actually writing for Google.
That's right.
Because the more relevance that we have on our website that ticks the Google algorithm box, the better that we can present our business. And when someone said that to me, I was just like, actually, I've got to stop writing for the end user. You can't write crap. You have to still write relevant content. But we are doing it purely for Google.
That's right. But it also does have to be, written as if you are talking to someone as well, because you've got to remember too that you do have a story through your website. The website is your business, your passion, it's you, it's about what you're doing and why you do it. So a blog can't be so disconnected in the way you're communicating that it looks like, why did they write that? But it's a matter of that fine balance of impressing Google, still telling your story.
Yeah. Now, what came to my mind when we talked about blogs, and I'm a believer of blogs as well, but is it old-fashioned?
It is a little old-fashioned, yes, to be honest. But it's just one of the ways. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you can do to optimize a website, and you can do all sorts of, you can pay all sorts of people all sorts of money to do all sorts of optimizing, which is a good thing. If you want to do that, that's fine. But if you're a single operator, you don't have a massive budget, you're wondering what you can do yourself, well, then just get a blog platform on your website, a proper blogging platform, and start writing about the things you love, whether it's picking berries in your garden or the fact that one of your accommodations has big sliding doors that opens out onto a vineyard, and you can smell the beautiful fresh air in the morning. Something about your place, what you're doing, something about your services, your product. It's an old-fashioned platform, but it really works, and Google loves content. It still loves content. So it's a really easy way of doing it yourself.
Yeah. And that is an awesome segue to the next point.
That's content. Boom.
Yeah. Boom.
That's good, Tracy. She's like guiding me. Content is still king. I know everyone talks about click-through rates, and people don't, it's like click-to-book rates and how fast someone can click on a call to action and all of those points of a website, which is still important. But really at this time, it's about reviewing your content on your website. It might have been written 5 years ago and the world has changed. It's gone 365 degrees in the opposite direction. As we all well know, the international people have long disappeared, and everyone talks about, well, we should still factor in that market. Yeah, I think now everyone's a little bit over trying to factor in that market potentially. But I really think content you need to review your content and make sure, does it match where we're at right now? Does it match the next 6 months? Does it match who's going to book you in the next year? Because that's the audience you want to attract. And really, it's, in my humble opinion, it's mostly going to be domestic market. So is the content of your website around the domestic market? Does it talk to the right kind of people? And really review all of the content through your whole website. And is the communication directing to where the market sits right now, or where it's going to sit in the next year, not where it's sat for the last 5 years, because that's out of date. It's changed so radically that won't communicate anymore, really.
And we have to remember. Yeah, look, what we need to constantly remember is that a website is not a set and forget.
That's right.
A website is something that has, it has a life. It goes through moments. And if you're getting asked questions about your product or your services, then there's something missing on your website. So you always need to be constantly evolving it.
It's like a veggie garden.
You got to keep turning it.
You do. You got to water it. You got to nurture it. You got to get the bugs off. You got to fix it. You got to change the seasons. You got to update it for what's relevant. If you don't do it, then the bugs eat it and it's all dead and gone.
And I think that's a perfect way to put it, is the change of seasons. You wouldn't go out in the middle of winter with a singlet on. You would make sure that you've got a jacket. So if you're not changing and adapting to what the demand of the market is, you'll have a disconnect almost with your website.
That's right. And part of that too is researching where your markets are. And I know for a lot of you who are in a small business and you're running around 24/7 trying to keep the doors open, keep everything running, sometimes that gets omitted. But maybe it's a matter of reaching out to your RTO or your trade and enterprise or your local trade and enterprise office to say, okay, in the last 12 months, how have our demographics changed? Where are our main audiences? Where are people coming from? And then finding out and going, oh, actually, everyone says, oh, Auckland needs to open. Fine, yes, but you might find that they've actually got a really strong niche market in somewhere near you like Dunedin, or maybe potentially Tauranga if you're in the North Island, or Wellington, or some area that you hadn't even thought of, that suddenly it might be worth reviewing your content to actually target that specific demographic.
Yeah. Now, Tom, that definitely makes sense, but I do have a question for you, and it's just backtracking a little bit. So Rach has actually asked, what blog platforms would Tom recommend? So what would you recommend?
There are a dime a dozen. Webflow has a blogging platform that you can integrate into it. Webflow's a website platform we build in. WordPress has its own blogger tool. It depends, as long as it actually is a blogging tool, not just a page on your website that says news, which is a whole bunch of stuff added to one page. Generally, most website platforms have a blogging platform. So as long as it's WordPress, or if you can actually take each blog and it's indexed as a page, it's all good.
So what are the key attributes to it being a blogging page?
Generally, each blog has when it was posted, you'll find in the CMS, which is the content management system, which is what your website's built in, you'll see that it'll have an index of blog posts, and it'll say it was published on this date by you. And generally in the back end of your content management system, you can add a meta description, which is a short description about what that blog is. And look online and see what is an ideal meta description, and that'll tell you, Google will even tell you what they reckon is a really good meta description, and that's literally the thing that Google will pick up the website, the blog, and log and index it for. But yeah, most content management systems have a blogging tool in it that works that way.
Yep. So she's just come back. Webflow, that is music to James's ears. So we actually met James at the last social media update, and yes, you rave about Webflow. I mean, I think, do you get commission?
No, just that we've spent 20 years building website, and my business partner spent 40 years, 30 years building websites. And in that time, we've used everything from our own proprietary CMS that we built, content management system that we built in-house, that's still being used now, to Silverstripe, to WordPress, to there's a whole bunch of them out there. We've just found Webflow really easy to use. It's one of the few content management systems that you literally, as you're designing the website, you're building it. It's that simple. Yep. And it's really, really easy for my clients to use. I've had other CMSs where you'd be an hour and a half in training and they'd be bamboozled. Webflow, I'm literally 15, 20 minutes and the client's away off playing with it and making changes, and they're good to go.
Yeah. And I would like to end just on this conversation here, Tom, because it's something that we were talking about offline before we came on. And it's that challenge between, or that balance between having a website and actually being able to edit your own website and having some form of control. And you would see it as just as much as I see it. People get websites because they know it's really, really important for their business, but then they have no idea how to edit it or touch it.
That's right.
And I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were telling me that to get a change put on their website, a minimum charge out fee was $180.
Right.
So you automatically understand why people don't touch their websites.
Yeah. But then my advice into that would be to reach out to your web guy and say, give me some training on my content management system. And even if you have to pay for that, and learn what your website can and can't do and how you can actually get in there and change it, and then start doing it yourself.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I'm a big believer of actually being able to control your own destiny with your website and being able to work with it, and even to the point of actually learning other platforms. But I am not a whiz at that. That is your job. You are the whiz at that. Now, Tom, some great tips there. Analytics. If you don't have it, get it. One question about it. People get confused sometimes with analytics. They get a little bit confused in regards to the fact that their platform may give them some analytics. They're not connected
it's not
to
the
Google.
Same. Not the same. Why I like Google Analytics, because it gives you the good, the bad, and the ugly. It doesn't actually hold back any information. Often you'll find, I've seen this many times, you might have someone who's giving you an analytics report. And if you get an analytics report, normally it's a snippet, and it actually isn't the full information. Because if you want to go and make a decision, you want to be fully informed. You want to know what's good, what's bad, what's ugly. You don't want just snippets of great stuff, because that's never going to really be an effective way to look forward. So my recommendation is go and have a look at your proper analytics. Go and have a look on your website and get access. Figure out how you can get access. And even if someone else is looking after it, say, I want access, because they can give it to you easy.
Yep. And I think another piece to remind people is that sometimes they get confused with the fact that they may have the analytics that come through each month from Google My Business, which are slightly different to the actual website. So then the other point we covered off was blogs. You know, talk as much about what you do. I love your tip on it. You know, just talk about the fact that you can open your doors out to a winery or out to the roses or just something special. People forget, especially businesses forget what is special about what they do.
Yeah, 100%.
They just need to keep writing about it. And that also comes down to the content. Google is a hungry little monster. It loves fresh content. So keep giving it fresh content.
Perfect.
And then hopefully your analytics will work, won't they?
Yeah, well, you can see it's a circular thing because you can measure on your analytics then what the results are, and you can keep adding and you can tweaking, and it's just a matter of really knowing before you go, really. That's my advice, because so many people just let their website tick along on the back. But if you start running your website and knowing what's going on with it, then it helps you make informed decision rather than getting these emails from someone saying, we've reviewed your website and it's just rubbish and you better do something about it. And then you go into panic mode. It's better to be informed and figure out how it's all performing so that you feel confident that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Great advice. No, that is great advice. Well, Tom, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And I hope it lifts really, really soon, because we do want to see your face really soon. A big shout out to Rach for those questions. We love it when people get involved and ask questions. We are here. You heard earlier, Tom loves serving the tourism industry as well as the small businesses just as much as we do. So that's why we love having him along. You will probably see that face again. We love spending time with Tom. He has lots of knowledge to share, and we want to share it with you. But in the meantime, thank you for tuning in. Tom, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and we look forward to having you soon. And for those that are watching, please tag, like, share. If you have a question, shoot it to us. We've got some awesome content lined up until the end of the year this year, and we can't wait for you to join us and come on the journey with us. And you will definitely see Tom again in a couple of weeks. We haven't told him when yet. He's just because he's still in lockdown, he doesn't get told anything. We just tell him to turn up. So Tom, thank you so much. And to everyone out there, stay safe.
Brilliant. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.